Good morning, students. Now we'll learn a new chapter of the living organisms, characteristics, and habitats. Okay. First, in the first video, I'll give you the brief idea. Okay. Now we'll learn it from the textbook. Paheli and Buju went on vacation or to many places of interest. One such trip took them to River Ganga. Okay. Rishikesh. They climbed the mountains Himalayas, where it was very cold. They saw many kinds of trees on these mountains, oaks, pines, devdas, very different from ones near their home to plains. In yet other trip, they traveled to Rajasthan, and what they see, the camel. There is a hot desert. They say they saw cactus plants, and finally they went to Puri. They there they saw sea beach, casuarina trees. Okay, so Pahelin Budo think why the this habit this plants and are very different. So and yet all them had many organisms that is of various kinds. Why? So they try to think of a place on earth where there may not be any living creatures. Okay. So what they doing? They took one paper and pen and they make a table and classify them and write it in the book. Our first point, that is 9.1, organisms and the surroundings where they live. Okay, so Paheli and Bujo was about the kinds of living organisms they were present in the different location that they had visited. The deserts had camels, the mountain had goats and yak, Puri had some other creatures, crabs on beach, and such a variety of fish being caught by them. Okay, now here is one activity. Okay, now we'll move on the next point, that is 9.2, what is habitat and adaptation. See, now look at here, what are the surroundings like in these two regions. Okay, in the sea, plants and animals are surrounded by saline, that is salty water. Okay, and they most of them used their air dissolved in water. There is a very little water available in the desert. It is very hot in a daytime and very cold at night in the desert. The animals and plants of the desert live on the desert soil and breathe air from the surroundings. The sea and the desert are very different surroundings. Find very different kinds of plants and animals. Okay, see, at the two very different kinds of organism, at desert we found camel, whereas at a sea, from sea we found fish. They have different body structure. Okay, the body structure of a camel help it to survive in desert condition. How? Camels have long legs which help to keep their bodies away from the heat. Okay, of the sand. They excrete small amount of urine. Their dung is dry and they do not sweat since camels lose very little water from their bodies. They can live for many days without water. And see, let us look at different kinds of fish. As we know and as we discuss in the or as we learn in the chapter end, that all the fish has or aquatic animal has streamlined shape. What is the streamlined shape? That is, their body is broad at the middle side and flat at the at the two sides. Okay, so because of it they move inside water. Fish have slippery scales on their bodies. Okay, these scales protect the fish and also help in easy movement through water. We discussed in chapter 8. Okay, gills present in the fish help them to use oxygen dissolved in water. See, now we have taken only two examples, but there is a wide variety of animals and plants that live on earth. In all these variety of organisms, we will find that they have the certain features that help them live in the surroundings in which they are normally found. The presence of these specific features or certain habitats which enables an organism to live naturally in a place is called Adaptation of an organism differ depending on their places of dwelling. That is why fish cannot live without water and camel cannot live in a sea. Okay, the place organisms live in is called habitat. Habitat means dwelling place, a home. The habitat provides food, water, air, shelter, and other needs to organisms. Several kinds of plants and animals live in the same habitat. Okay, the plants and animals that live on lands are called lived in terrestrial habitat. Example: grassland, desert, coastal, mountain region. On the other hand, the habitat plants and animals that live in water are called aquatic habitats. Now, acclimatization. Now, what is acclimatization? There are some changes that can happen in an organism over a short period of time to help them adjust to some changes. Example: if you living in plain and suddenly you go to high mountain, so what you experience? You feel difficulty in breathing. Why? Because there is a less amount of oxygen at higher places. But after some days, your body can adjust. So this is called as acclimatization. These changes are different from the adaptation. Okay, adaptation takes long or thousands of years, whereas acclimatization takes very short period. Okay. Lakes, rivers, and oceans are some example of aquatic habitats. Okay, the organisms, both plants and animals living in habitats, are called biotic components, where abiotic components are non-living things, that is rocks, soil, air, water in the, as we know. Okay. Now journey through different habitats. Okay, some terrestrial habitats. Desert, as we discussed about the abiotic factors of a desert and the adaptation in camels. What about their animals? Okay, as we know that a camel have a hump and long legs. Okay, see, this is a cactus plant. Okay, desert plants lose very little water through transpiration. Why? Now, what is the transpiration? From the leaves or from the stomata, a small pores, the water comes out in the form of water vapor. This process is known as transpiration. Okay, as we know, from transpiration water comes out, but in the desert, the leaves are very small or in the form of spines. So what happened? Why this is? Because as the leaves are small, very less amount of water gets out of from the leaves. Okay, because in the desert area there is a small amount of water. Okay, the leaf like structure you see in cactus is in the fact stem. Okay, photosynthesis in this plant is usually carried by the stem. Okay, stem is also covered with a thick waxy layer which helps to retain water in the tissues of cacti. Most desert plants have roots that go very deep into the soil for absorbing water. For today's session, this much is okay.